All right, I'm in Seattle with Eddie and Jeff. We were supposed to do this in 2020. COVID intervened. We did a pod on the phone. Wi-Fi was bad all the way around. I wasn't totally happy with it. It was great to talk to you guys, but we're doing this correctly. Throwing away the other podcast. We're just starting from scratch. But the same thing, 2020 that we have now, new album, some new energy. You guys go to Malibu to record this. It's like Jeff was saying, it was like the old days. You guys were trapped together and just had to come up with riffs and music. So what happened?
Well, I mean, Ed was making a record with Andrew, and kind of mid-recording thought that we should be there and to experience what he was experiencing. And I mean, it was out of the blue. I remember it was like middle of the summer. I was like, Montana, having a great time.
You're like, what?
I was like, oh, I got to go to LA for a week. But you know, anytime you get a call to record, it's like, you got to do it. And there was really no plan. There was no plan. So we didn't know what we were headed into. Like, I remember Googling Andrew Watt, going who is this guy? And so,
so it's almost like a relationship. You guys needed to just spruce it up. Just get somewhere new location. No, the band. Just go new location, new energy.
Well, you know, it was a different way of recording with this guy, Andrew Watt. Yeah. And he'd always kind of, you know, come to visit the group on tour. We just knew him as this kind of young musician cat. It seemed nice enough. And then he did some records with like Ozzy, and then he did this record with Morrissey, and then he was a friend of the Chili Peppers. And to be honest, I think, you know, I made the first time I ever really recorded on my own was, I guess, Into the Wild. So that was a soundtrack, and I just kind of played the instruments myself. And then the next was ukulele. And so those things are very non-threatening to the group. But, you know, being down there and all of a sudden finding myself writing songs, and now I'm playing with Chad Smith, like actual other musicians.
I like Chad Smith, sports fan.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, he likes Detroit, but outside of that, he's a great guy. I like Detroit too.
Yeah, they're fine.
Underdog. As long as they're an underdog, but I felt like this could get a little sensitive, and I don't need problems with me and the guys. That's the last thing I would ever want. So I was like, come check this out, because it might be an acquired taste, but see if you like it. The results that we were getting and the speed at which we were recording even the solo stuff.
Yeah.
It felt like it could be a positive path that if the band was willing, they might want to jump on that train. Right from the first day, we were getting, you know, songs with power and songs that sounded great at loud volume. And we were all playing together. I mean, we were playing together in a room just about this big with a mix board and a drum kit and, you know, keyboards over there. I mean, we were about as tight as we are now.
Literally bumping elbows with Stone and the kick drum like 2 feet in front of me. It's fun.
Well, what was 1990 when you came from San Diego to come after they were like, hey, we like this guy's demo, let's go. And then you guys just made a bunch of songs together, but it was pretty similar, right? You're probably in some crappy house in Seattle.
No, it was a basement about the same size.
Not that different.
Yeah, not that different, right.
Where was that though?
Belltown.
Second and Bell.
Yeah.
How many?
In the basement of a old art gallery called Gallery Potato Head. And then there was what was the name of the pool hall? Next
Pool
door.
Old 211.
Pool Hall 211. It was right out of Jackie Gleason and
the Hustler.
It was right out of that.
So you guys, you barely know each other. You get thrown in together, and you have a couple demos. They have some riffs. You probably wrote some stuff with your side, and then you just kind of see if it works. Is it like the longest date ever? What is it like? Like, what do you remember? This is 34 years ago. What do you remember from that?
You know, the interesting thing is that there was an interview recently that I read where you were talking about how, like, Stone and I were talking to Dave Cruisen a lot about the groove and like this part should be faster or whatever, but how we weren't. I mean, I don't think we were communicating super well, and I think
right.
And I think partly because
I do remember.
Partly because we didn't know Ed. I think we were being probably extra sensitive to like just letting him do his thing and, not wanting to get in the way. But I mean, the story is that he came up for a week. We had this crazy week, like 4 or 5 days of rehearsal, went in the studio for a whole day, recorded the 6 or 7 tunes that we had, played a show.
I can't believe you played a show.
Played a show like 5 days after we were first together, and then went and saw the Bulls and the Sonics at the Kingdom
Exhibition
on the 7th day with the guy from KSW. And then he got on a plane and left, and there was kind of no...
Went back in time for my midnight shift.
And then you went back.
I had to work.
But there was
So how'd you leave it? Were you like, hey man, that was great?
Kinda.
I had a tape. If I didn't have the cassette tape from the day in the studio,
yeah,
I probably wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been real.
Because after Andy died, I mean, you were probably wondering, like, am I even gonna be in a band again?
Yeah, man. I didn't know. I felt like our chance was done. Like
Right.
I was actively looking to go back to school. Like I went up to Bellingham and visited the art department, thinking like I think maybe that's what I'm going to end up doing. Because I had just quit my job like a month before that, and like didn't have any money in the bank. Like didn't have a car, didn't have insurance, didn't have a safety net really. So I was like, and it was only over the course of the summer, like promoting the Mother Love Bone record with Stone, kind of not really talking. I heard he was like playing a little bit with Mike, and then Mike's kind of started saying like, you should come over. And I said, I don't know if I want to play with Stone anymore. And Stone was probably thinking like, I don't know if I want to play with Jeff anymore. But Stone hit the ground running and, wrote some songs. And then eventually we went in with Matt Cameron and recorded those 6 or 7 songs. And that's the tape that Ed got that, he wrote 3 songs to, sent back.
Did you know Andy? Were you aware of his music?
Oh, Andy, or the band.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'd come across Green River, Soundgarden, Mudhoney. I had a little group in San Diego that we got to open for them in a tiny club called The Spirit, and I think that was just because I made the flyers and passed them out. But Mother Love Bone kind of it wasn't something that it wasn't on my radar for whatever reason. So, and I hadn't listened to it before. I was with Jack Irons because I'd met him. He was playing drums with Joe Strummer, Earthquake Weather Tour.
Yeah. And
he was the only one who came to soundcheck that day. I worked for free at these clubs, this one, and then had a real job, midnight shift. So you'd work for free, but then you'd get to go to like a sound check, or you'd hump gear and then get to be around and see people. And it wasn't a great club, but however, it was either kind of people on their way up or people on their way. It was, it could be some schlocky band or MTV band, or it could be an okay MTV band like the Godfathers or something like that had kind of one hit. Or it might be Ray Charles or Chuck Berry.
Wow.
Or and so sound checks, I kind of lived for the sound checks. A lot of times I'd have to leave before the real show anyways. But I was pretty excited for the Strummer sound check, but Jack was the only guy to show up. And we just had a conversation and talked about Chili Peppers and the whole thing. And then we ended up
Wasn't there a pickup
friends.
basketball component to this?
Yeah, then I ended up practicing in a group that were kind of more based in Los Angeles. So I'd go up on the weekends. Jack and I would play basketball on Fridays when I'd come up, and then I'd rehearse with the group Friday, Saturday, and then drive back down to work. It's an ugly shot, but it goes in.
He's athletic, competitive.
What NBA player is he?
I'm not competitive.
What 1990 Eddie? Who's his comparison now?
Maybe Pat Bev.
Pat Bev, like agitator.
I don't know who that is.
He doesn't know. That was why I picked that.
What was your game?
You bastard.
Oh man, I don't know. Like,
What's the question?
His basketball game. Doing basketball doppelgangers.
Pat Connaughton, maybe.
Shooter. Okay.
He can hit. Yeah, he can hit threes like nobody's business.
But Eddie was super shy when you were first hanging out with him, right? And then eventually it came out.
Eventually what?
I don't know. Eventually
So you started playing basketball with him.
Blossomed out.
No, I got this one-handed shot because I used to practice after. I think we told this story on the last
we'll tell it again.
podcast. So I used to carry this Walkman, right?
Yeah.
And I'd after the midnight shift, I'd go to this little park up from my little apartment. And so I'd play, and I remember Mother's Milk being one of the main tapes I was listening to at the time, Chili Peppers. And so I couldn't use my left hand because I'm holding the cassette deck, right? So it's just all one hand, but I needed music, everything needed music. Surfing, I wanted music. Everything, I wanted music. But anyways, the reason I told you that story, because then we ended up probably 3 years from that time when I was doing that. 3 years later, I think we were in Cleveland. It's kind of it was a ballroom, but on the other, and we were opening for the Peppers.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the ballroom, there was like this basketball hoop. So we got a couple balls and we were shooting, and the Chili Peppers were sound checking the same songs that I had been listening to. And now it was, I mean, what a dream to go from holding on to that thing with the headphones. Now it's them actually playing live. We're playing basketball, and I could use both hands.
See, this is why we're basically redoing the 2020 pod, because now we have this story on video. This is way better. There was a thing, one of the documentaries was about, I don't know, it was one of your early shows. I'm going to say it was maybe Vancouver, when somebody's getting pulled out from the audience and Eddie got mad, and your stage presence was basically born, and the other guys in the band were like, oh, what's going on here? And you just kind of figured something out. Do you remember that?
Back in the day, some places weren't, you'd have security that didn't know what behavior to expect and what the protocol was for either a punk show, or our shows were pretty active.
Yeah.
And crowd surfing and stage diving and all these things. And they might not have ever seen it before. They might not have. And their initial reaction was to
fear.
Beat these people up or, that's not happening on our club or something like that. And so you'd have to, there was a little bit of lifeguarding, So, I don't feel like I was super angry or aggro. I was more protecting.
And we
people.
all had experiences like as fans at those bigger punk rock shows where, the promoter would hire like the college football guys or whatever, and they would just beat the shit out of kids that, got on stage or were coming over the barricade or whatever. And so we were,
with malice. Yeah.
And so to be in the position to have a little bit of say and, I'm really proud of the way that you handled that and the way that we handled it as a band. Like, I think we sort of changed, how that was handled. I think security is really different now than it was then.
When did you feel like you had channeled your energy in the right way as the lead of the band, as the performer? I mean, we don't have to go a couple years later when you're hanging off things.
It'll happen.
Wait, are you going to be hanging off things this year?
Oh, that part of it?
Well, that was later. That was probably like 92 range.
I don't know. I'm hanging on your every word right now.
Because initially, you're playing for 6 months. You're feeling out the songs. You're feeling out the audience. You're feeling out what it's like to be on stage. But at some point, you guys became one of the best live bands that's ever been. Like, when was the moment when that happened? Was it in the first couple of years? Was it later after you knew the material? Like, what Was there a moment where you're like, oh, I remember it was this part of the tour when boom?
I think even at our most energetic and frenetic and kind of, I wouldn't say that was our best performances as musicians, or, I think we were, in some ways kind of so, shot out of a cannon and felt like, there was a bit of an Evel Knievel with all that climbing stuff, but I think you really wanted people to remember.
It's part of the era too. Some of
yeah.
those 90s concerts were a little crazy. Were you how many times were you actually worried for his safety and
oh man,
long-term future?
I mean, there's pictures of me where he's up and I'm looking the other way. No,
you wouldn't even watch.
And I think the thing that I was thinking about was I'm not going to watch him die, because that happened once before, and so there was a part of me that sort of felt like, I trusted him because I saw him do some fucking insane stuff, like iguanas, and there's some, Del Mar Fairgrounds, and there's some
records were made to be broken.
No, it's like no, like shit that never happened, that nobody's ever done. Like really Evel Knievel stuff. But yeah, there's a part of me that was sort of like afraid,
We were talking about Jeff about as you get older. When in the old days he would want to talk to the athletes, but now he wants to talk to the trainers and the doctors. With musicians, as you get older, it's like, what kind of injuries are you nursing these days? What kind of shape is your body in?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did a lot of live shows, a lot of running around, a lot of swinging, a lot of diving into crowds.
You know what it is? It's the picking and strumming, and it's tendonitis. That's
like tennis elbow kind of stuff?
It's not from tennis.
Well, but
is that what they?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's more painful than what I thought tennis.
They have the good
like.
stuff now. They have like the Norma Tech and all these different things where you can put the stuff on there. You were saying you did the
PRP.
Germany stuff.
Yeah, I went to the Kobe doctor. I don't have any cartilage on my lateral side of my left, the jumping leg. So I think 15 years ago, the doctor was like, yeah, you need a knee replacement, but you're too young. So you got to figure out how to, so I immediately was like reaching out to anybody that I knew. Wally, who worked for the Bulls, who was one of the first guys. And then he connected me with a guy in Indiana, because we were in Indianapolis when it was really bugging me. And they were all really high on, that technology, the Regenokine technology. So like a few months later, I was getting ready to go to Germany to do it. And they said, hey, we're opening a clinic in Santa Monica in 6 months. And I was like, well,
that sounds easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about that was because, we're in this, you've never showed this place before. I don't think. Have you? This is your batting cage.
We're in our warehouse. And when we first got this place, our whole operation is kind of under one roof. We practice next door, and we keep the gear, and then sell t-shirts out of that back warehouse, and we have offices upstairs for things like management, political activism, that kind of thing. A couple years into the building, we got this part of it. And
this became the playground.
Seattle, I was always trying to figure out how to get a batting cage, either in the backyard or it's just too wet. And then Jeff, it was his shot at getting a skate ramp. So he built a skate ramp, and then
back in the corner.
And we built this. It started off just real like white concrete walls. It was all scrappy and pallets with some helmets and a few batting gloves and a few bats. But Johnny Ramone had left me about 3 pallets of lawyer legal boxes full of signed first edition baseball books. He basically had a library. And
I mean, that's like who would have ever guessed that in a million years?
well, if you knew Johnny, that was part of him. You know, baseball, Yankees.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, it was almost like the Ramones were a side project compared to his love for baseball.
Crazy
Wow.
8x10 collection too, right? Like
The third biggest collection of signed 8x10s.
What?
And this is going back to guys in the 20s and 30s.
yeah, amazing.
The other two were foreign collectors, and they simply bought them. Johnny sent them to the guys. He had his baseball encyclopedia, and he had about 1/3. So he had about over 5,000, 6,000. So he figured he had 330% of everybody who'd ever played. So he felt he was
What the fuck?
batting 350 or so,
Yeah.
which would be a Hall of Fame number. So
I don't understand how you do that in like the early pre-internet era.
right? No, this was
Like
manila
post office.
envelopes.
Yeah, this is like you're just cold,
Just living
you're
at the post
cold
office.
writing letters to people,
Dear
right?
Moose, my name
Yeah.
is Johnny Ramone. I'm your biggest fan. And
Self-addressed stamp envelope.
You're more of an eBay guy.
he kept the what?
You go on eBay, right? Don't you get some stuff on eBay now?
A lot of this is gifts, you know.
All right.
But
I think he's secretly on eBay. He's good.
it's named after me.
Eddie 75. He's buying stuff.
But yeah, all those books, and then those 3 big binders. Those are all Cubs. So he had mostly Yankees. His next biggest was Cubs. That was his favorite National League team. And then after that, you had the 6,000. But
Because you guys,
so it became the Johnny Ramone Memorial Batting Cage and Library. And everybody who works here, works in the warehouse or wherever, they could come in at lunch,
yeah.
take a few swings, have a sandwich, and pick out a book. And
I didn't know what to expect when I came. I didn't know if like Dennis Rodman would just be serving lattes here or like how deep it went. But the connection you guys have with sports, I think
this is not a latte.
It's like, what is this?
It's a triple espresso.
The connection you guys have with sports though is I would say you're like the number one sports crossover band, like in all these different ways, right? Even dating back to when you wanted to be Mookie Blaylock and legally couldn't pull it off. You almost named your band after a random starting point guard from the early 90s. And then it just kind of
Toronto
goes
Shea,
from there.
Is that his real name?
Yeah, Toronto Shea, Blaylock. Mookie's your real name.
I just don't know if the band, I don't know if it hits exactly the same as Mookie Blaylock. I think it worked out. I think Pearl Jam was a better outcome. But you're here during, I wrote down a bunch of sports stuff, actually. This is why I had my iPad. Because we're taping this. It's the same day as Oklahoma City Game 2, right? Which should be Seattle. You guys were here for basically the heyday of the Sonics.
Mm-hmm.
You did Star Spangled Banner. What was that? Game 3, 96 finals.
Bulls, yeah.
You
Was
had,
that Bulls Seattle?
Yeah.
you did a poster with Sean Kemp.
Mhm.
Even when you put the album out this year, you did the MLB and NHL, you had the tie-ins with that. You had the Sweet Lou song. You had the Rodman hang, which was, that could have been like a spinoff of the Last Dance thing. And then you have Present Tense and Last Dance, which I think is the most viewed sports documentary of all time. And you guys were the closer. And then keep going, 2016 World Series. But it's just like sports always seems like it's around the band. And then on top of that, you guys have been together 33 years, which is, like a version of a sports team in a way. The sports team, like what the Warriors have now, the team that actually stays together. So I don't know. It's something that's there, but I never heard you really talk about it that much. Do you feel it?
I've just always, of course, you grow up and you have heroes, and growing up, and we had WGN and the Chicago Cubs and black and white TV,
right.
And they just became kind of part of your household because they were always on, and mostly day games. Home games are always day games. But then as you grow up, you realize that sports, I think it's the drama, it's like seeing a play, but you don't know how it's going to end.
Right.
And that's where the art and the thrill, but also the focus. And I think it's the focus. I think it's when you get to, let's say, a Game 7 or this could be Wimbledon, this could be anything, maybe not golf, but the focus, it's seeing a human being with that intense focus and a lot of weight, but then, not letting that weight affect them and just kind of go. And then that's where you figure out that's where the practice is, or the practice, being such a big part of, or the mental stability, because you've tried to go through it, so you don't panic. I think that's the stuff that you can use, that you get inspired by, and you can use it, in the studio or in a live performance, or, I that's what's always appealed to me. First there's the heroes. I've still, we have modern day heroes in sport, but also they're probably our heroes because of what we've seen them do under pressure,
Attention to detail and then coming through when it matters.
And
it's a little similar to music.
Well, and I think, Joe Madden was really good, or, talking to him about it at length, just about, having just been through it. I guess, lineups compared to set lists. We used to have this conversation, and he had kind of color coded on his thing like that.
Yeah.
And then I had color coded on my pieces of paper, and we were just talking about but you've kind of thought it all the way through and visualized it to a certain extent. So then when the moment comes, you don't have to think about it. It's not a brand new equation.
Yeah. You agree with that?
Yeah. And for me, it was like, I grew up in this little town and had the same friends from when I was born until I was 18. And there was a crew of about 10 or 15 of us that we grew up playing sandlot, everything. We played hockey, football, whatever season it was, we were sort of playing it. And then through junior high and high school, we played all those sports together and played Little League and Babe Ruth. And so the one thing that I knew when I was 18 was that there was this, every once in a while, you tap into this thing with your group. And I knew at an early age that the group was more powerful than the single person could ever be. Like there was something when it really happened, even if you weren't a part of the big shot or whatever, you were still part of the unit.
Mm.
And I think when things rolled over into music for me, I wanted to feel that thing that I felt when I was a kid with my crew, I wanted to feel that power that was exponential. It wasn't 5 times. It was 100 times, because the 5 of you were doing this thing together. And I mean, to be honest, the first couple of days that we played in the basement together, I felt a hint of that. I felt whoa, there's something exponential happening here. And so, once you sort of taste that energy, you want to, it's a drug. It's like and it's not the crowd, and it's not, the crowd amplifies it even more, but it's the tornado that when the winds are all moving the same direction, the power that comes out of that is it's just the greatest. It's it's still what I want to do. It's still, when he calls and says, let's get together, you're like, okay, we could,
let's go.
This could happen, we could hit on something. And so,
it's interesting hearing you talk about that, because the Warriors are at this point now, right? Klay Thompson's going to be a free agent, and Steph and Klay and Draymond have been playing together basically since the early 2010s. They've had the same coach. They won 4 titles. They didn't make the playoffs this year. Team's getting old. And you hit this point where it's maybe Klay leaves, maybe he just signs with Orlando, but it really seems like those guys just want to stay together. And I don't even know if it matters to them in the same way if they win another title. It seems like the nucleus of it is more important than the titles, because they already have 4. But you talk about that reminded me of that, where sometimes, all right, Klay goes to Orlando, maybe he makes the finals with these dudes that he just met 5 minutes ago. But is that going to be as special as playing his entire career in San Francisco and Oakland? There's no way, right?
to go to the finals every year or something. That's
there's
lot.
30 teams.
Yeah.
And they had one of the craziest runs ever, you know? I mean, that organization's in a tough spot, you know, like, and they re-signed Draymond.
Right. Well, he's kind of the modern Dennis Rodman. Well, you guys had...
By the way, I just realized I know a couple of people who actually golf.
Yeah.
So I want to.
So you feel you want to apologize to the golf community?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't want to.
We'll work that in. We'll edit that in.
Little cleats.
We'll put a little graphic. Eddie apologizes in advance for his golf comments. You guys, I mean, how many times was the band actually close to maybe going this way? Because you had it like in the mid-90s, there was a moment. Maybe like 2000, there was a moment. But was there ever really a moment where you felt like this is going sideways? Because there's a couple of times you took breaks. Eddie's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, I mean, I think there were probably moments where all of us were ready to bail, you know, like some misunderstanding or some lack of communication, or, you know, there's probably some moments, but I don't know if I think there's a semi-documented moment, like when we were making No Code, that I said I was ready to quit the band. That was probably lasted for 2 days, you know, where I felt that way. And then you're playing with everybody and
because bands, for the most part, aren't meant to stay together. I mean, it gets pretty rare when you go after 8, 9, 10 years. And then you see like some of the bands that stay, that it feels like they pass this invisible point where it's like, you know what? We're together and this is just how it's going to go. And I don't know whether it's like 6 years, 8 years, 10 years.
Well, I tell you though, we're not a band together because we're like, well, okay.
Well, you know what I mean.
You know, this is how it turned out. So if you're okay with it, it's not that way at all. It's you know, look, I think we have to give credit to the audience for showing up, supporting us, kind of returning energy back to us.
Feeding off their energy, yeah.
And being a custodian of the music and for them, and feeling responsibility to that crowd. And then that's not something that just one of us takes on. That's something that we all take on. And when we discuss set lists or a tour plan or whatever, it's all agreed upon. But they, you know, this is a brotherhood. I don't know, you know, outside of even our band lives, it was, you know, we've all been through a thing or two here and there or whatever, or maybe not all of us, but we've looked after each other and you know, that brotherhood is strong. And again, I don't know if it would exist without you know, an audience that kind of gave us a reason to stay together that was kind of bigger than us or anything that any one of us felt as an individual.
Right.
You know, it was more, they kind of forged our, you know, or kept us tight in our relationships. But I really don't feel like there's ever been you know, we were able to maintain and manicure and protect the songs and the music and our future of playing music.
Yeah.
In those early years. And that was probably, you know, that wasn't easy, it was kind of taking a dare of, will that audience we were just speaking about, would they follow us? Because we thought the light was a bit too bright. And then bright lights cast dark shadows.
Yeah.
You know, so we just wanted to take it down a bit.
It feels like by the 97, 98 range, you were good with what happened with the band because it was meteoric, right? I mean, I remember you had some quote like you were just playing guitar in your bedroom. You never expected any of this, right? And then overnight, all this shit happens.
Well, it sounds pretty whiny, but yeah.
Well, but it's true. I mean, most people don't expect, you know, if you love doing something and you're messing around with it, you don't, you know, the great idea. It's not like you're a basketball player. Like, I'm the number 2 player in my class in 6th grade and I'm going to play in college and then get to the NBA.
I mean, two things. Like one, all of us had been playing music for 5 to 10 years before the overnight thing happened.
True.
The other thing on the other side of that is that because we sort of, that first record, we sort of had a plan. Like we wanted to play a lot of shows because we felt like we wanted to be a better band. And so we did these things our own way, how we wanted the security to be at the shows and how we made our shirts and the prices we charged and kind of all these things. And because that first record was so huge, people left, like the record company and the people left us alone. They're like, oh, they must know what they're doing. And so it sort of gave us a little bit of a carte blanche to sort of like just follow whatever tributary that, was the most powerful for us. And
to say the word no.
Yeah.
But again, luckily that we were supported by an audience because otherwise, we would have had to go back to doing it the way we were being told or asked.
Right. Jeff and I were talking before you got here about how it's 30 years since 94 and just all the stuff that happened that year. And Vitalogy came out maybe like, I'm going to say somewhere near the end of 94. And Kurt died in April. And you guys were on Time Magazine that year. The grunge thing, it became, I don't know, felt like commodified by 94, 95. And in general, it was a weird time for music. And then it kind of shook itself out over the course of the rest of the 90s, right? What do you guys remember? Just that whole mid-90s run, watching the music industry. It was almost like somebody shook a snow globe and then it had to settle again, right? Does that make sense?
It's blurry.
Yeah.
It was blurry. I mean, I was sober and it was blurry.
MTV's the biggest it's ever been. Yeah. Rolling Stone there are all these it's pre-internet. And there's a million good bands. It was like one of the most fertile times for great music I think we've ever had.
Well, I think us pulling back at that time was like the best thing that we could have done because I think almost all of us spent the 80s like trying to get on that bill for the band that was coming through town and just kind of hustling, working your day job and like, bringing a tape to the promoter and like, putting up flyers and making t-shirts in your basement and whatever. So then when all of a sudden, like everybody in the world's, Neil Young's calling and Keith Richards is calling and like you're getting, it's like
your heroes.
Well, and it's hard to say no. It's hard to say no. So that took us a minute to sort of figure out like, no, like the only way we're going to survive this is if we say no to like, you say no to your heroes. You say like, no, we're not going to go play those shows, even though it's like.
Well, we didn't say no to those guys.
No, right. No,
but eventually. Well, also the second record. I mean, I think the second record, I think we got home on December 18th, and then we were going to play the New Year's Eve in New York with Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos. And then, so from the 18th to the 29th, that would be your 10 days to write the second record. Because
and you have a show.
After New Year's, you go into the studio or something.
Yeah.
That was it? 10 days?
To write, maybe you could write half the songs, but it was, it was just, whatever. We're not complaining now. That's how the old groups used to do it as well. The Kinks and the Who and, that they were constantly just recording. They would play shows while they were in the studio.
So this album.
So I don't mean to complain, but.
Well, don't be self-conscious about complaining. You didn't sound complaining.
I will always be because of that time.
Yeah.
And those were all the questions back in the day. And I'd say, well, and this was true. But it was like, I don't feel like I've changed, but I feel like everybody around me has changed.
Yeah.
And that was the strange and isolating part of it all, and I just, we weren't really built for it. I wasn't.
Well, that was I'm a little younger than you guys, but that was that generation where you weren't supposed to want to be too successful. You were supposed to do stuff based on, what was cool and what mattered to you versus like selling out. Selling out was like the biggest theme. Like even, I think we talked about in the last podcast about the movie Reality Bites, where the villain in that movie is just the guy who wants to make a TV show and make some money for everybody. It's like, oh, look at this guy. He's trying to make money. What's he doing? This evil dude. This is Ben Affleck's character. This evil guy. And a lot of it was about, hanging out and being authentic. And authenticity was so crucial to basically all the art back then. Yeah. And I don't know when that shifted, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to explain now.
Well, I'm a huge fan of authenticity.
Well, now authenticity is used as this kind of code word. It's like when documentaries, when people always say storytelling. It was about storytelling. And it's like artists, they always talk about authenticity. Well, I'm just trying to be authentic to my brand and my fans. This album that you just put out, though.
That sounded kind of like an oxymoron. Trying to be authentic to my brand.
Authentic to my brand. This album that you put out, it honestly feels like a 90s Pearl Jam album. And I don't know if that was the intent. There's a different vibe to it. There's a start to finish kind of feel to it. And I thought some of the lyrics and some of the songs I thought were pretty poignant and things that I don't know if you would have necessarily said 30 years ago, which I thought was really interesting. If you're thinking like, what's the conceit when you're going into an album? What was the conceit that you wanted from this album?
I don't know the term that your conceit, the conceit.
Conceit, like if you were going to describe the album in one sentence.
That I was being conceited?
The theme. No, not conceited. No, like the theme of the album. Like, what are you trying to say?
Oh, yeah.
Every album's like trying to say something. It's not just a collection of songs.
But I mean, this is more a question for you, but I never felt like we've ever gone into a record going like, okay, we're going to make a record about this or that
like
or whatever.
You have a couple different riffs or songs that you like.
Or I think
just like
what you're saying is like even having a focus or let's just, maybe we should just, I'm thinking about this direction, or I'm thinking about a bit more of a modern sound laced with, some old, or a lyrical focus or anything. I think that's why when you come out of the other end of it, I think other groups can do that. Or obviously people write, concept conceited records, but they
I'll never live down that one.
They have they're able to, we've just never been able to do that. And I guess what I was going to say is that's what makes it kind of even more kind of exciting and thrilling. And there was a mystery and a bit of magic that came out of simple musical problem solving and working together, and then all of a sudden it becomes this cohesive work, and that feels like a completed thing that had some aim and direction to it. But really,
that doesn't always happen.
I don't think it ever happens with us. I just don't.
Well, I think like this album was more wistful than any album I can remember from you guys. Like I listened to it and it sounded like an album of guys who have been doing this for a while and who are a little older now and are thinking about stuff in a different way. Was that the wrong takeaway, or I guess every album hits people differently?
Well, maybe if you're talking about authenticity, you're writing what you know,
right?
And then. I'd be curious to see what somebody under 20 thinks about it, or how they relate to it as in juxtaposition to someone who has grown up with us.
Yeah.
Or is a similar age and maybe can relate more or have a little more insight as maybe as neutral as some of the lyrics could be on an interpretive level. I think you would understand. They might connect quicker if you're our age. But it's crazy because I always go back to Who by Numbers, which was the Who record, and there was some very autobiographical songs by Pete Townsend. And, you know, however much I booze, how many friends have I really got, you know, these kind of, and I was 15 and I totally related to all that stuff.
Right.
And they're really the songs directly transmitted from a, you know, guy in his mid 30s. And when I got to my mid 30s, I understood them even more, but they were still anthems to me as a kid.
One of the songs, Waiting for Stevie, which is really good. You had the lyric, you can be loved by everyone and still not feel that you are loved, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you would have dropped that one in the mid 90s, right?
I don't know if I should drop it now. It just kind of came out, you know.
I like it. Does this mean like the process now, you guys have to go to a weird location? Just lock yourself in a room?
I just think anytime that, you know, the five of us can get into a room and be focused and just be all hands on deck for 10 days, then there's a chance that some really good stuff's going to come out of it. And it's the best thing. Just give it to him. Just give him 10 days a year. With him and 3 others. But it's the real reason to keep the band together. That we get to do that. And like sometimes we get together and it doesn't, you know, it's not happening. And it might be because maybe not everybody's on board or
on the same page,
whatever. But, that was the great thing about this record was, you know, I think the way that Andrew had it set up, there weren't TVs, there wasn't very good cell service.
What were you doing for basketball?
I wasn't watching it. Like we had
cold turkey.
We had one day off in the middle of it, and I watched I watched the Gonzaga game in the NCAAs. That was the only TV I looked at.
I want to
but you don't need it. You don't need the basketball.
Yeah, I was busy.
Yeah.
I want to go through all 12 albums really quick. And when I say the name of the album, what's the thing you think of?
Okay.
10. What do you think of?
I'm stumped already.
Come on, just do it. 10.
Even flow.
I'll come back to that one.
I got a better one. Rope swing. That's
good.
Rope swing. Okay.
Yes.
Versus, what's the first thing you think of?
Softball.
I'm terrible at this.
You're terrible. Should I just abandon this? Vitology?
Accordion.
That we were making that record kind of along a tour in different cities.
See, now Jeff's getting the game.
I should
now he's doing like real memories.
Okay.
So you're doing that record as you're on tour, and you have some regrets on it?
No. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we recorded a couple songs in New Orleans, a couple songs in Atlanta, a couple songs in Seattle.
It's haphazard.
Was that Vitology?
Yeah.
Okay. No Code? Did we do?
Eddie's still
New
bad at the
Orleans
game.
as well?
No Code.
Oh, we started to, and then yeah.
Okay.
Did a couple days.
No Code.
Polaroids.
Polaroids. Okay. Yield.
The cover.
Yield.
Man, maybe one of my, along with the new record, one of my favorite records that we made.
Really?
It felt like the way Jack was playing with us, and it felt like there's maybe like I don't know, like we came through some kind of fire a little bit, maybe. I don't know. And that it felt really creative and yeah.
1998 was my favorite Pearl Jam year for this reason. Well, first of all, I like when a band's been together for a few years. And then when you're in concert, you know, you're going wherever, you actually have this library of songs, right? It's a point. You're together 8 years, you're going to have 50, 60, 70 songs you can play in a concert, but you also have fans that they're not just like chanting the lyrics to but they're like, this music means something to them. It's been with them. It's been in their lives for a while. And then you guys have all been playing together for a while. So you have like a certain chemistry. And I just feel like that year 6, year 7, year 8 is just a good time for really good bands. I think if you go through, like, that's usually around there. Eddie's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, I think that's when the set list problem started.
What was the set list problem?
It's probably where it started to,
started to get a little wonky with the set list?
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I was just thinking like that might have been like kind of the sweet spot where like there's only 50, 60 songs and the puzzle is probably like manageable,
Yeah.
And as it gets further down the road, there's 200 songs and then the puzzle gets, it's a big puzzle of like a lake, of just like water of a lake. It's all blue.
I think, how many nights did we play in Philadelphia to close the Spectrum? Was that 3 or 4? 4. So I think we did 4 shows.
Are these chairs?
Was there a day off?
Yeah.
The special chairs.
Spectrum. And it wasn't just the last concert. I think Chicago Stadium were the last concert, but this was the last event. I mean, it was wrecking ball
is it, yeah.
After the, but I think we played 110 different songs in the 4 nights, something like that.
Seriously?
I think there was only a few repeats over the whole, like maybe 3 songs were repeated somehow in those 4 days. I mean, it was remember those pens with the blue and green and yellow, the Bic? Yeah, it was all color coded.
Well, it seems like
that didn't take very long, but.
Well, you guys used the internet eventually really well with how to build anticipation for, they played that song. I can't believe they did that. And I don't know. It's something that feels like it came maybe somewhere in the 2000s. And then now you have Instagram and a lot of the bands or whoever works for the band or whatever, and they'll post like the, whatever the set list is for that thing that sounds like, oh man, they played that. Oh, and it just feels like part of, I don't know, when a band has the library plus the performances plus they coming back to the city. It's like, they were in Boston, they did this. It gets cool after a while.
And our fans are really forgiving. Like we will occasionally last minute add a song we haven't played in 5 years and we might not play it great. And they're all in, which is, I mean, I remember us seeing that we went and saw 3 Grateful Dead shows in Las Vegas.
Did we?
Yeah.
I thought it was just one really long one.
But I remember the second show, the crowd, it was the loudest I heard the crowd all weekend.
Yeah.
And I turned to this guy he was our trucking guy who had driven with me down from, I said, what's going on? What's going on? He goes, they're playing, he named some song. They haven't played this since 1972. And I was like, whoa. Like it was like the loudest the crowd got was when they were playing a song they hadn't played in 20 years. And I thought that's something, like that crowd.
Yeah,
that's something.
That's when we decided we're going to stick around for at least 30 years. There are benefits that will be reaped.
Did you follow the Taylor Swift tour at all? Is your daughter into her?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think of the mechanics of that tour? How long it was? Some of the gimmicks she used with it? One of the interesting things was she was doing what we're talking about. She would play each concert. She would play some song and they would know it was like, oh my God, she's going to play this, or she'd do a cover. And it seemed like it built this strange momentum around what the song was going to be for each city.
Well, it illustrates what happens when, she's an artist who's respectful of her audience. And I know from my daughter that she's really kind of incredible at planting these little, this hidden codes and, that they can pick up. And then all of a sudden it activates, all those people that are listening and has them involved in it. And it's I think it's done in a very creative way. And, and she changes it up, and there's talk about, you know, what she played that night and what she played, you know, and she's the other thing that she has working so well for her is she's incredibly prolific, so she's able to just kind of
She really is. I don't fully understand it.
putting out music, and I mean, my daughter's turned me on to this one B-side that I just think is incredible. It's just an incredible song, and I think it was a B-side or something, but
Yeah, she did a 31 song album, even though she was also doing the tour every night. Like, I think she wrote and came up with all the songs on the tour, which to say she's prolific is an understatement.
And I think her producer choices too. I think like a couple records ago, choosing to work with the Aaron Dessner guy from the National, like, and Bon Iver, like those songs to me are the most interesting songs, because I think that palette I like. But I think she's, you know, I think she's not afraid to change in a way that maybe is kind of anti-pop in some ways, you know?
Right.
Which is, I have huge props for that.
Yeah, there's like an ability to subtly reinvent yourself over and over again is a really hard thing to do. And that's like one of the biggest dilemmas an artist has as they get older, right? And usually pop artists don't last more than 6, 7, 8 years. And she's at like 16.
I read a kind of not great review in the New York Times yesterday or the day before, and I was like, well, of course, like she's at this.
Oh, the backlash is here? Yeah,
kind of, but she's in a place that maybe 2 or 3 other artists, musical people have ever been in. Like it's like, it's nuts. It's like
her, Michael Jackson, and the Beatles and Elvis. Yeah,
probably that's it.
Yeah,
I mean, so it makes sense that there's a backlash. I mean, I don't know how do you even level that off?
Well, she's a really good person, and I also hear that she handles stress really well, so that'll come in handy.
Can you get her on stage? Can you get her on this thing, like just yank her on for one of the concerts? You guys are going on tour soon. Just invite her over.
I might be able to get Jason Kelsey on stage.
Go through the Kelseys, see if you can get her. What can your band learn from some of the younger artists and how they use all the stuff we have now? Anything?
I'm not going to. No.
You're done. You're like you are.
I'd rather just.
So we're not going to see you doing Instagram shorts or none of that stuff.
I don't know. I don't think so. What would? Yeah, I don't.
I think you're good. I don't think you need it.
I feel like an animal, a human that's evolved, and the whole. I didn't grow up with that kind of stuff. I didn't grow,
right.
and I kind of
just don't get it.
Well, I don't think I want to. I don't think it would add more than it would take away.
What if you just did an Instagram post every day where you just reviewed a bottle of wine that you like? That's not Eddie's wine.
And become an alcoholic.
Eddie's wine gram.
See, you're just more. There's more takeaways than.
Well, what about when you're performing and you always have a bottle of wine?
Tonight I reviewed 6 bottles of wine.
Maybe when you're performing, you're telling the audience what the wine was that night. I give this rating a 93. It was delicious. Great bouquet of this Barolo. Think about it. Ask your daughter. Maybe your daughter can help out.
Yeah, it sounds like a slippery slope.
It might be. Yeah, you might be in a good spot. What have you guys learned about doing interviews over the last 30 plus years? Because you went through phases where you just didn't do anything. And now you kind of pick your spots. So what? Yeah.
I mean, the best part about doing just a handful of them after you've made a record is, I think it sort of helps you understand the record. You're sort of talking about the record for the first time, and I think sometimes even in that process, you start talking about each other in ways that maybe you hadn't, so that I get excited about it because I feel like you learn something. You learn something about yourself and the band.
But you guys roomed together. You didn't need to learn anything else about Eddie. Didn't you room together for like 2 years?
Yeah. We That was the kind of the book club room.
Weren't you guys a giant band? Why didn't you guys have your own rooms?
Well,
I don't understand that part.
We did as soon as
it was possible.
As soon as we.
I mean, it was like 150 shows at first, so it was a year and a half straight of touring. So
just 2 double beds. Did one of you like the window more than the other, or like how'd you?
I think we got along pretty good.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember like running in to get the window bed or whatever.
The Versus tour, he's like, I want my own room. I can't live with Jeff anymore.
No,
putting on basketball at 2 a.m.
No, we were pretty aligned, and as Stone brought up the other day, him and Mike were pretty aligned as well.
Yeah.
So I think we naturally split off into the, and we were probably kind of have like some John Martin playing. There's a Portishead or something, and maybe some little drapey things over the lights and some incense, and it was kind of like, and then we'd read our books, and then you could hear those those guys yucking it up next door really loud and laughing. It sounded fun too. We were just different.
How many people from like those first 2 tours are still involved with you guys in some way?
Bunch.
Yeah,
like 30%, 40%.
Well,
no more.
More?
Yeah.
I mean, Smitty.
I mean, we've grown, so we've had a few extra people in the kind of tour crew.
Yeah.
And the warehouse crew, but I'd say most everybody's been with us 20 years, and then a big part from day one still here.
Yeah. Probably half of the first 10 people, probably half of those people are still with us.
Going speed round. Will you ever play the Super Bowl?
It's not at the top of my wish list.
Any reason?
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, never say never.
Eddie seems a little more excited about it.
Oh no, this is like, no, that you thought that was exciting.
But yeah, I thought there was a hop in your step for a second.
No,
Super Bowl. All right. Where are you staying on the ticket industry?
I feel bad for the players. The players that's their whole. That's like everything in this sport that's so incredibly popular, and then
there's a 35-minute break, the biggest game of the year.
With all the I think it's disrespectful to the players. That's my take on it.
Where do you stand on the ticket industry these days? It's been a rocky road the last 30 years. Where are we now?
Man.
With the ticket industry?
Yeah.
Well, you've got you've got a big issue with the what they call it, the secondhand market.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Still bad.
That's where you're having, a lot of the difficulties stem from there, and it would be great to have some legislation to protect people from having that be the situation where you have to go through, between the bot, what we go through just to vet somebody trying to get a ticket and clean out like the bot thing.
Yeah.
I think the day of an on sale, I think there's, tens and thousands of artificial entities trying to,
and somehow that's not better. It just feels like I would have thought by 2024 we would have been able to clean up some piece of this.
It's battling like out of control capitalism. It's just like everybody's trying to make money off of something all the time. So I think we do as good of a job as anybody in terms of like we have a really loyal fan club and people that run it that really care about it, and we try really hard to get tickets, in the hands of our fans.
Did you see the vinyl coming back? Did you ever imagine in a million years vinyl would return?
We're hopeful.
It was more popular than CDs this year. Like literally.
About time.
Sold more vinyl than CDs this year.
Yeah.
You see that coming?
No.
Yeah, any explanation?
When kids, when the youth thinks it's cool, and I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but yeah.
It seems more decorative in some cases than anything. It's almost like they like having them, put them on like their desk or whatever, but not actually open them.
Well, maybe that's good that finally something physical, because it had gone so far the other way, the pendulum, that was simply Spotify. There was no lyrics. There was no artwork. There was no, it was a thumbnail of what you would buy.
Right. And,
to have it kind of swing back where, something tangible, and vinyl does sound better. And it's kind of interactive, and I'm really proud that, when I look around and see the people, especially younger folks appreciating vinyl. Me and Jack White are thrilled.
It's a little like baseball cards where a lot of people threw out their vinyl, not realizing the vinyl was making a comeback.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit. Yeah. My mom threw those out 3 years ago.
And a Willie Mays rookie card.
What's amazing is I found I got an old ghetto blaster, and just listening to tapes on it, like tapes that I had used,
right?
They were already used, like kind of beat in. They just sound incredible.
Yeah. Once your ear gets tuned into it, it's pretty great. Like once you get used to
the warmth and whatever, compared to
not being there.
Digital. Yeah.
You guys happy with Spotify these days? Yeah. Okay. Just had to ask. They own the ringer.
Our first record didn't come out on vinyl. Like probably the months right before that.
Is that true?
10 did not come out on vinyl in the States. And I remember we were getting copies of the record, and I didn't have a CD player yet.
Yeah.
And I remember like listening to our first record on cassette. That was what I listened to.
Wow, yeah.
Jesus. Have you followed
Tempo of the Dog came out on vinyl.
Yeah. But 10 didn't, because I think we were like a small band, and so they didn't have to, and I think they were squeezing.
I felt like by that time CDs had kind of cassette tapes and CDs felt like they'd taken over.
Yeah,
have you followed the AI stuff at all? Either of you? Like just where this is potentially going with artists?
Not really, but a little bit, I guess.
Like we're moving toward an era where somebody can just do an AI Pearl Jam song, and then you would get half the royalties or 80%. I don't know how the royalties work, but it feels like similar to sampling and hip hop in the late 80s. And I don't know how it plays out.
I had a conversation with a young artist the other day, and they were talking about using AI as a tool to write.
Yeah.
And how, just really excited about all this stuff. And I listened for 15, 20 minutes, and then I said, man, you're really missing out on like the best part.
The points of music? Yeah.
Well, no, just the best part of writing music. Like when you're writing music and it's coming out of like, you're basically, it's osmosis. Like you're listening to music and you're thinking all the time about ways that you'd want to make music, and it just gets scrambled up in there. And then when you sit down with your guitar and you start to play, it feels like magic. It feels like magic I think if you sit down and you're like, I'm getting on my computers and I'm going to look and see what AI is going to come up with when I want to make a cross between a PJ Harvey song and a Nick Cave song, and see what that, as a tool, I think you're missing out on like that magical moment when like you play something, you go like, whoa, that's cool. Where'd that come from? You know, like that, the wonder of that moment. I don't know. So that was my argument back, I was like, man, that could be maybe one little part of your thing, but don't lose the other part where you're just sitting down and
creating something.
And opening yourself up to your environment and your.
You agree with that?
Isn't there a power in listening to like a new Springsteen song or a new Olivia Rodrigo in anybody's new song and know that came from Olivia Rodrigo and what she's been going through, and Bruce and what he's been going through, or what he's learned, or, he's singing about his, growing up playing music with these young guys and they were all kids and now he's the last man standing. And it's like, isn't there, that's part of what you appreciate. It just seems it would feel rather strange
and authentic
to be listening to someone going, yeah, I don't know. Did he write it? Did he not write it? Is that real? Is it, did he, it doesn't, I think it's a real slippery slope. I don't know where the positives are. I mean, I think this whole, to sound like, totally antiquated, somebody who still uses a typewriter. In fact, I've regressed into calligraphy. I'll be fucking carving stones soon.
Carving stones would be interesting.
Which,
hey, are you done with that lyric yet?
Yeah. Well, I know.
Eddie carved 3 stones today.
You got to think a lot. You're even with calligraphy. You edit a little bit more before you're not just scribbling. But so to think about, where it could go with. And what are they doing? They're kind of, it's an algorithm that's supposed to know what you would say based on what I've read is that it's moving very, very quickly and no one's like stepping in to kind of have some control over it.
I think you're right.
And so that I would think would be the problem. And, when they talk about how, what's the word when it that word when they computers talk to each other, it says
conceit,
not conceit,
not symmetry, it's not symbolism, it's that
I know what you mean. I can't think of the word either, but yeah.
Symbiosis.
Well, like what happens if somebody, I guess it hasn't happened yet, but at some point there's going to be an incredibly popular song that's just created out of a computer based on somebody's work. And it'll be like that Whip 'em Gangnam Style type of song where it'll just be this catchy song that becomes a phenomenon. And people will be like, whoa, nobody made this. And then now what do we do?
And then it'll be this other thing where people don't trust something else. And it's like.
Right. Then you're in a Milli Vanilli situation.
It did remind you, did you ever hear the rumor back in like 1980 that Tom Schultz from Boston fed all the greatest songs in the world into a computer and came up with the 10 Boston songs on the first Boston record? Like, Beethoven and the Beatles, and it's.
No, he was just a good songwriter.
That would be an amazing documentary if that was actually true. He was way ahead of his time with computers.
It'd be the best.
Hey, if Seattle gets a basketball team back, which is going to happen as soon as they finish this media deal.
Oh, yeah.
2 years.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Why can't you guys be like minority investors? Can you get in on that?
It's too late.
No, you can sneak in there.
I mean, if Howard Schultz would have offered that to us.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
15 years ago, I would have been all in. I'm still so mad. I'm still so mad about that. Like, I'm still mad at.
I know it's like half of our conversations.
I'm mad at Howard Schultz and I'm a little bit mad at David Stern.
You should be a lot mad at David Stern.
Yeah.
We were talking about.
I invested all my money in AI, so I'm.
We were talking about Kevin Durant, who has bounced around to different teams, right? He was in Oklahoma City, he's Seattle. They moved to Oklahoma City. Goes to Golden State. Decides to leave. He goes to Brooklyn. Now he goes to Phoenix. And it's like, if the Sonics just stay, he never leaves Seattle. His career is probably even greater than it's been. I think he's like easily one of the 20 best players, but now he's like the king of Seattle, right? He's like what Russell Wilson was for 4 years, but for 20. And it's just like this amazing sliding doors moment. Like, I actually feel bad for him because it seems like he's been searching for the right situation ever since. He's never
and
totally
he talks
found
about
it.
Seattle a lot.
He
I
loves
feel like
it.
once a year, like he's rocking the jersey and
Right.
saying something about it.
Oh, I think when they get the team, I bet he finishes. I bet he comes back. I could see it happening.
That'd be great.
Yeah. See, you're getting excited for this now.
Yeah.
Courtside?
I'm still trying
Jeff's courtside.
Well,
I don't know where.
I just got, I don't know if I told this, but I just got courtside tickets to the San Diego Clippers next winter. So you heard about that, right? The LA Clippers, their farm team.
Oh, the G League team.
Yeah, they're going to
Oh,
Oceanside.
San Diego. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's cool.
I like that.
be
Good
first-
uniforms.
yeah, it has to be. Great.
All right, so
World Be Free.
Blue and
Wasn't he
orange.
on that
We'll be
team?
free. Yeah. Unfortunately, Donald Sterling. Yeah, that was where Magic played his first game. He threw the Kareem had the sky hook and won the game, and Magic ran over and hugged him, and Kareem was like, "What the hell's going on?
Don't
Why is this guy hugging me? Don't touch me!"
Wow.
All right, so you're going on tour 6 months. You ready for this?
Have
7
to be.
months.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. December 1st.
What wines? What are we? Is it a different wine each city? Like, what's the wine plan?
It's usually like a Barolo or, nothing too fancy.
You don't go like, "Oh, I'm in Philly. I'm going to Pinot Noir it up tonight," like that.
No.
See, this is why we need the Instagram.
Right. You want the, yeah.
So Barolos.
Yeah, that would be a nice cab or, whatever they got. It's really just, I like the way it makes the throat feel. And it just, I used to worry about my throat all the time and then, and it used to go out all the time, like the first couple of years. And,
Because you weren't taking care of it? What was
no,
going on?
because I was,
Oh,
no carbonation, no carbonated drinks, no beer, no alcohol, no smoke. Didn't want to be around smoke, I mean.
oh, so you had to like toughen your throat up.
Well, I just had to like get over it and have some fun, I was, just constantly thinking about it. And we were only playing 45 to 60 minute shows, And then I remember watching, there's a little club called Oddfellows up here and Mudhoney was playing and there was this crowded room, about this big, but just, 60 people in a 25 capacity room and smoking and drinking and loud and cloud and Mark Arm being in there and then going out and singing his tail off and just screaming in perfect pitch and he was having a blast. And I said, I'm going to try that. So.
And the rest was history. How many cigs do you smoke a day usually?
Oh, none.
Couple?
I quit a long time ago.
You quit a long time ago? All right. What are your bad vices? Anything?
My bad vices.
Oh, geez, we're going to be here.
Online
what
gambling?
are my bad vices? Probably
Just for him to come up with one is going to take a while. Is what I mean.
Sure, probably chocolate. Probably sugar.
Chocolate?
But it's not. I don't have bad chocolate. I don't eat. But yeah, chocolate. I really don't hardly drink anymore. I eat pretty good.
See, he's
It's
ready
like
he's ready for the tour.
Mostly it's about feeling good. Mostly
Yeah.
it's like, just like, how do I wake up tomorrow and not feel like shit? And so I sort of, whatever I have to do that.
You don't agree with this?
No, I forget it until the morning. And remember that thing that Jeff said.
What does your daughter nag you about?
Nag me about?
Yeah. Dad, why do you do this? Nothing? Because I don't believe that. Because I have a daughter who's like, I think a year younger than you. Dad, you got to take care of yourself. Dad, you got to do this.
Oh, nag me about.
Yeah.
No. No,
Nothing?
pretty.
They just let you fly.
I'm more nagging them a bit.
What are you nagging them about?
If you're going to use the studio, you got to put everything back the way it was, you know. I don't mind. I appreciate your wanting to sing or play guitar, but you got to put the stuff back or, you know, support it or clean up the art supplies. You can't just leave. I mean, if you imagine, you know, all these nice paintbrushes, you know, well, paintbrushes are expensive.
Or your stones that you carve into.
Just painting all of them. Dried paint.
Oh, yeah. If they dull my freaking...
That's how you communicate.
Yeah.
Do you really use a typewriter?
I always have.
Like even now in 2024?
I can fix a typewriter. I can't fix a computer. Absolutely. I like there's a West...
Not even like a word processor, an actual typewriter.
Typewriter.
You can change a ribbon like...
Yeah, you do. Well, and then
like
you have to
fast.
rewind it probably twice a session if you're going at it.
Is it an expensive typewriter?
No, well,
was it like an old school, like 80s typewriter?
My first not my first typewriter, but one that I really liked. It came from a little Goodwill kind of thing in West Seattle, and that still has the masking. I think I probably used that for the first 4 records, or record 2, 3, 4, probably 5, but that has a piece of masking tape that says $8. So that was a good return on the investment.
I was so happy when word processors showed up because I was such a bad typer. I'm a 2-finger typer.
Word processors,
even when I was writing my sports columns for 20 years, I was like doing this. But I could type really fast. It was like people would watch me on an airplane or Starbucks or something. They'd be like, how do you type so fast with 2 fingers? I was like,
that's cool.
I don't know.
Like a Mickey Spillane.
Yeah, I don't know. I never learned how to.
I
never took a class. So I always kind of just figured out how to type. So, and then when I got the BlackBerry, I was like, that was probably the peak of my productivity because I could just do this. But iPhone, I can't type on. iPhone is just beating me. I'm just like.
My favorite typewriter now, it has a calligraphy font. And it's called the Torpedo. It's from East Germany, 1962, I think. It's cool.
And you use the Torpedo from Eastern Germany?
Mostly every day.
It's amazing information. I had no idea.
I'll send you a picture. That's cool. I'll find one for you.
We're wrapping this up because you're going to show us all your your baseball stuff. Well, some of it. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to be super curious. But
sorry, I failed I thought I'd be good at that kind of password thing.
Oh, we never finished. We had 6 albums left.
All right, come on, go.
All right. I got to find it. Hold on.
I just screwed up.
Binaural?
Stereo.
Chad Blake's Dog.
Riot Act?
Chess Pieces.
Studio X. I don't know.
Wow. Not a lot of memories of Riot Act, huh?
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam? I guess that was the 2006 album. It was basically called Pearl Jam. It had no title.
Adam Casper, but also I remember Ray Cameron playing drums and telling us what to play.
Oh,
he was like,
Max.
hey, play less. He was like
8
or maybe younger.
Yeah, he'd sat behind his dad's drum kit.
And he was telling us, okay, you stop playing. I remember he was like,
it was good.
It was awesome.
Backspacer?
Oh, can I just share one?
Yeah.
We had this idea. We had album titles just kind of written on like Post-it notes, and we're sticking them on the back. There's a piece of foam in the back of the studio, and then one day I think there was the word avocado got put down. So then I started kind of thinking about this kind of very neutral color with a blue. So we're going to do like a test shot of an avocado. We kind of had an idea.
Is that with Brad?
Brad was going to come down with his camera, and we kind of painted a blue backdrop, and then so on the way to the studio, I went in to get like a couple good avocados, right?
Yeah,
like this that looked kind of perfect, and what I didn't realize was Super Bowl Sunday, and I think it was Seattle against the Steelers.
Wow,
bad Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so I get it, and I'm just going to just quick, go into the store, race to the studio. And there's just like, the store is packed. It's just like, you can't even, like, I can't even believe why there's so many people in the store. And then I realized, anyways, I made it to the avocados, and I was kind of like, really like inspecting. No, that one's not going to, I was like auditioning avocados. And I saw like 3 people that kind of recognized me, and they were just staring at me, just going, what the fuck is he doing? I just thought that was always
so meticulous about his avocados.
Yeah,
He's a big fan of the avocados and typewriters.
But that's my thought on it. Avocado.
I remember George brought in remember he put the Steelers helmet on the TV right afterwards? I was about to kill him.
Well, I actually brought that helmet in.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I never told you.
Jesus.
Well, didn't he put the jersey on his dog or something?
I just remember that was a painful one. There's some kind of questionable calls in that second half of that Super Bowl.
Was that in Detroit?
Oh, that was like a borderline. That Super Bowl might have been rigged.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a controversial one. Lightning Bolt.
Jerry
2013. Jerry Lopez. What do you got, Jeff?
Listening to sirens in Ed's room.
Oh, hotel room.
Yeah. Right after he finished the vocal.
It was just a demo.
And then the 220 album that's got to be COVID's the thing you think of. Gigaton.
Oh, Gigaton.
Made right over there. Right next door. That whole record.
And then Dark Matter, you'll just think of Malibu. Just sunshine.
That was a good.
Shangri-La.
Sunshine was just like white rooms.
It actually like basically snowed while we were there. It was cold and rainy.
Yeah.
Pretty much the whole time.
Southern California is, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's supposedly, I don't know if this is true, but I saw it on the internet, so it might be true. Supposedly LA has had more rain in 2024 than Seattle so far.
Yeah, I've heard
dry.
that.
Yeah.
Dry here.
No, it was a great place to record, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was, it's not fancy. It's kind of utilitarian, but with a lot of vibe,
Jeff and I were talking before about there's some songs in that album that are gonna like kick ass in concert. And like sometimes you hear and you're like, oh, that's gonna be a good one. If on a scale of 1 to Porch, as you know, my favorite concert, 1 to Porch, there's some ones that are creeping toward Porch.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, like there's no way that's intentional as you're making a song, but then sometimes they just translate. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Well, I think what's cool about the record is you can listen to the rhythm section and the drums and it was recorded quick enough to where, he's kind of playing on instinct.
Yeah.
And just kind of free flowing, and that, it's almost like a dog after you've rinsed it off, just shaking. It's like, just what he can do. It's like somebody at the peak of their powers playing their instrument. I mean, it's really kind of shockingly incredible, but and we are living in a time of great drummers. There's a lot of great drummers and great young drummers, but it's an exciting, just his performance and the way they lock it together. On this record, especially, I think that's a reason I'll always appreciate listening to this one. And if you listen to is it Got to Give? Is that the one I like the bass line so much? I mean, they're all good, but it's incredible.
You guys have had a couple drummers,
but we haven't had a new drummer in 26 years, 27 years. She said it's just that early.
It's part of the early history.
Centrifugal force of those early years. They just fly. Every once in a while, want to fly off.
All right, we're going to look at some baseball stuff. This was fun.